How many of you have heard of Plato and Aristotle in this room? You have any idea of what their views were about food? What did they feel about the research in food or food in general? Anybody knows about it? Any guesses?
Yeah. What should you like? Yeah. What
Sure.
food as a spirit?
Yeah. Sorry, please.
Food as a spirit connection with the universe.
Yeah. In fact, while the Indians philosophers always felt that food is an integral part of philosophy of life, the Greek philosophers, even Plato and Aristotle, dismissed it. They said food is something we should not be talking about because it distracts us from higher thinking. And I think they will be rolling in their graves today when they see that we are having conferences of such nature happening in Triple ITD. That's fantastic. Thank you, Professor Bagla. So, Mike, topic today is how computational gastronomy is transforming flavor and culinary training. In the past semester, since July this year, after we had our meetings with Professor Bagler, we said we should start testing what does his platform, which is Rahatui, does. A lot of our students started looking at those recipes, and we also started looking at that platform to see how we can, in fact, improve the flavor profile, taste profile of how to judge food. When we taste food, how do we taste food? What are some of the problems there when you are assessing or judging food? Can anybody tell me that? When you're tasting food, some people find it spicy, some people find it normal. There are biases which we already have in our mind. That could be also because of our backgrounds. What also we have seen is that there is anchoring bias, there's hello bias. It depends if you go to a 5-star hotel like Taj or Oberoi, you feel that food is the best. It may not be, but that's the perception which we have. There's quite possible what is served in your canteen, the quality of food is equivalently good. But because the canteen or cafeteria and it's cheap, we might feel that is much cheaper and it's not of that quality. I've not tasted the food, so don't hold me for it, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. Again, another thing which we have seen is that sensory rubrics, which we follow in Le Cordon Bleu, help us to, in fact, ensure that a little bit of bias is kind of dismissed, but it's not always possible to dismiss that bias. What we also saw that quality, in fact, comes from various parameters. Some of the aspects which people look for quality perception is where they look for is perfection. They might look for exceptional food. When I say exceptional, it might mean which is standard driven or something which is unique, something which has not been done before. A lot of times when we look at food or judging food, we look for fitness for purpose. If I'm serving it in a cafe, I will serve different kind of food. If it's in cafeteria, there'll be different kind of food because of value for money, which is another aspect which people look for when judging the quality of food. But there's also situational appropriateness. What is proper way or proper place to serve the food? Would you serve something for breakfast which you normally have for dinner? Maybe not. Would you have something bread and eggs or bacon for dinner? Maybe yes, sometimes, but that's not possible all the time. So that situational appropriateness becomes very important. And then, of course, there is conformance to standards. What are the standards of that particular organization? What are the standards of that particular space or place which is serving that food? When we first also looked at some of the contextual cues which people follow, whether it comes to pricing, whether it comes to quality perception of what others would say, the social integration of those food habits. What you eat in weddings, Indian wedding, you don't expect them to serve you non-veg food. While some weddings do serve, but the expectation is that it needs to be purely vegetarian. So that expectation, you judge food based on that expectation. There's also reasons for a little bit of differences in vocabulary, sensitivities to that. What we might say certain things taken as common in Haryana may not be that common in Karnataka. So that also makes a difference on how we assess or judge food at times. When we looked at computational gastronomy, this was in July sometime, we realized that that's a great platform for us to integrate data science, chemistry, and culinary arts. And that's one of the things we said that, well, how can we use this knowledge to get better in judging the quality of food? how flavor can be quantified, how flavor can in fact be said that this is the quality what we need to look at, or we can quantify it further. What we did was how the complexity of interior ingredients which are based along with a flavor mapping that can happen. If that knowledge is already available, then I don't need to experiment. It's already available to us. We can use that knowledge to move on to get to the next level of recipe creation. We also realized that the innovation in the recipe becomes much easier because of knowledge which is already existing on such platforms. We also looked at aligning digital and AI driven culinary education. These are some of the things which we have done in this semester. We realized that there is a possibility of, in fact, creating that algorithm interaction where insights for human cognitive process could be formed into suitable judgment to look for judgment of food. Again, followed by refining decision making to remove the bias and enhancing the quality of food. Bias is one of the biggest factor which we face. Some people like the same dish, some people don't because they're biased. And that also made a difference on how chefs could use to augment, not create, augment the recipes. Always this question is asked of me wherever platforms I go to, that would AI replace chefs? And I always tell them, no. In fact, they are supporting, the AI tools are supporting us, and they'll augment our creativity much more than replacing us. Are we scared of being replaced? No. Idea is not to get replaced. Idea is to say how we can join hands and make the platform much more feasible at all levels for all the people around the world. We also realize that there is an opportunity to extend the students' knowledge to guided intervention through this phase of AI and recipe enhancement. Today, you will be, as mentioned by Professor Bagler and Professor Bose, you will be tasting some of these items. We have done some study on how AI recipe works and how the recipes which are being created by French chefs in Paris, in LCB, and we will be tasting those platform, and you can decide for yourself, and it's blind tasting, so you won't come to know which is what, and then we'll be sharing the data with you as to how the responses were. Now, what are the benefits for educators and learners? One is, of course, evidence-based approaches to judging food. Then, of course, there is enhanced flavor profile and enhancement of taste. A lot of flavors which are not just now available in India, we are not aware of them. They become much more accessible to us. Whether it's Mexican, whether it's American, whether it's Spanish, those flavor profiles are much more available. Like some of the posters I saw this morning, there's a lot of research which has gone into it, a lot of work, 10 years worth of work which has gone into it, makes it easier for us to use that knowledge to develop new recipes. There's also reduced subjectivity. Subjectivity is one of the biggest problems which happens in making decisions about food quality, which I had spoken to you about earlier. So those subjectivity gets reduced because there is no human bias which is controlling that. That becomes a big issue, big advantage to all of us when judging food quality. In terms of competency-based education, what are the implications? It supports the calibration. I'm able to look at the results from AI and also calibrate and align my own thought process and say, okay, this is how AI said. It allows me to reflect much more deeply. It's like a friend who is not judging me. So if I ask a friend, if I ask somebody, how do you feel about this? I am scared of being judged. But AI, I'm able to align or collaborate very well without being judged. That is a big advantage which I feel happens to me. The other aspect is it mitigates non-performing or confirmation biases which we might feel. It allows us to get rid of them altogether and makes it a little bit more objective in its approach. And it improves the validity of culinary training for us. What does future of computational gastronomy looks like to you? I would like the young people to tell me a little bit about this. Anybody? No? What does it look like to you? What's going to happen in the next 4 years? If you had a crystal ball, what do you think you'll see into it? No? Come on. No ideas?
Robots को EV लगती है.
Sorry, coming.
Robots cooking meals for you as per your personalized taste.
Robots cooking, yeah.
And making food becomes more
access to people,
Yeah.
widely accessible. Now it is in some domains, some experts.
So, what do you believe is that just now you need experts to prepare food, but if there's a possibility that it becomes more accessible through AI, which makes it easier for you to cook food? Yes, okay. Anybody else?
More customized IT plans.
Sorry.
More customized IT,
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
depending on location profile, AI can generate recipes.
Yeah. So AI is already doing a lot of work on it. So you can put in some of your dietary restrictions, and it can generate a recipe for you, but it still cannot cook for you. You still need a third party to cook for you. Optimize food, but what about emotions? When we cook food for somebody, we are also showing our love. It might take time, but ask a mother who likes to cook food for her daughter or son, and they do it with love and affection. And how do we take care of those emotions in data-driven, AI-generated recipes? I would leave you with that thought. There's no need to give an answer, but it's an integral and important part because emotions and love of cooking, and a lot of people tell you it's therapeutic. When I cook, I feel happy because I'm cooking for my loved one, whether it's my dad or mother or son or daughter, or even for myself. How do we take care of that? So please keep that in mind. You don't have to answer it. But I also feel that future direction should perhaps look at immersion for training flavor perception, AI-driven personalized flavor design, which one of you mentioned as how can we have personalized, wherein a possibility of feeding in that this dietary restrictions I have or what kind of food today I'm in the mood of, that is given out to you. And the third important thing is predictive analytics, which you had shown me one poster. We spoke about that in terms of prediction of sweetness, which can be many engineered and innovative pipelines. What is important is to ensure that there is a human touch still there. I think that is quite critical in whatever future we look for ourselves and for children. Obviously, there's importance of looking at the planet Earth in terms of sustainable practices, which again, I know that Professor Bagla, your team is doing some work on that. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. And please have a good day today.